Hey everyone, it's Jonathan from Motorpsychology down on the banks of the mighty Mississippi River. However, not the same Mississippi River that is world famous. For the new viewers, welcome. And also for the returning viewers, welcome back. Your support is greatly appreciated. In today's video, we're going to be installing the water pump on the 350 small block Chevy engine that's in the C3 Corvette. So it looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward, but you never know with these old cars what's going to come up. So I'm going to give it a shot, hopefully earn your subscription, and let's give it a try. So this is the water pump once again. I'm going to be using the Velcro gaskets, and the recommendation is not to use any RTV on it. I did have some options like using this, but the more I've read on the Velcro, not recommended, and we're going to try it without the gasket sealer. Couple other things that I've seen come up as well. We've got this little metal dowel here, and a lot of people don't know where this goes or what it's for, so there's not a lot of information on it. Where it does fit, it goes into your engine block, and it fits generally into this area here. So it goes in there, or goes in the engine block, and this sits in it. All it does is restrict water flow from this hole to this hole here. And most vehicles these days, they're not putting it in. So I don't know if I'm going to put it in or not. There wasn't one in when I took it out, so unlikely I'm actually going to use this part. But they do come with water pumps, just so that you're aware. And for aesthetic reasons, I painted these things a nice bright golden color. So it should be pretty straightforward to get this thing on the Corvette. A couple things to be aware of here is 3 of these bolts go straight into the engine block, and there is no exit, so they're pretty safe as far as corrosion and stuff like that. The bottom left bolt is the one that goes into the cavity in the engine block that actually has the coolant in it, and you can actually see on this one there's a little bit of rust, where in the other ones they're pretty clean. So that's another good way of checking it out. My point here is it's a good idea to put on some thread sealant, at least on the lower left one, if nothing else, because you don't want your coolant to go through the threads and out and leak. So this will just prevent any leaking. In my case, I'm going to put a little bit on each and every one of these as I put it in. Another good idea is on the non-threaded part of the bolt here, just put a light bit of oil on there, and that's what I'm going to do, and that just prevents this part from getting corroded and perhaps rusting into the water pump. I don't really think it's a big deal, but it's just the way that I'm going to set mine up so that it's going to be less problematic in the future, hopefully. The other part that I wanted to highlight, this is the fan belt pulley and stuff like that. That will eventually go on here. Tap it down, and then the fan on top of that. Another thing that I want to highlight, just for people's information, the torque value on these into here is 30 foot-pounds, so it's pretty light, and I'm going to try and torque them up once I get it installed. So we're going to be using the thread sealant, and after a bit of reflection, I'm going to use a tiny bit of this. And what I'm going to do with that is, on these surfaces here, I'm going to put a super fine layer of this, and it will at least allow the gasket to stay in place while I put this in place on the car. So I'll show you all this when I get outside. So these are the gaskets. Once again, I'm going to pull one out. And you'll notice on these Felpro, there's kind of like one side has a design on it and the other side doesn't. So I'm going to put this side against the block, and I'm going to put this side on the water pump like that. And they're both made to fit kind of that larger spot there. Let's get this one open here. Try a different tactic, smarter with the scissors. And the same with this one here. Just going to put that on like that and trim the bottom. That part's not required. So to give it some adhesive, I'm going to stick some of this on. Just a super light amount. So finally getting a small bead on here, just a tiny bit like that, and just going to rub it in here super thin. So the reason you put it on super thin is you don't want to create any undue pressure between the mounting surfaces that could crack the block or damage the water pump or prevent a good seal. So my surfaces are pretty good here, so I don't need any real gasket sealer other than I want to use it to keep the gasket on. All right, so like I said, I'm keeping this design on the outside and keeping that on the inside and just placing it on there like that. And the reason I'm doing that, once again, is just to help me when I put this water pump on the car. This is not going to slide off. Time for this side. Same process. Stuff is super sticky. A little bead here, and then just rub it along here. All right, that's perfect. Stick this gasket on. Great, so the gaskets are on. They're not going to slide down when I lower this onto the vehicle, which is perfect. So now time to go outside and get this thing on. Here we are making our way to the C3, and I just wanted to show you what I was talking about down here. So we're looking straight on the engine block here. And right over here is where the water pump is going. And this bottom hole is the one that doesn't bottom out. So that one goes all the way in. You can probably see my screwdriver inside there. And this is the top hole, which bottoms out here, so no coolant goes in there, but definitely in that side there's coolant. These sides here are fine. They just go into the block. They don't mix with the coolant, so not as critical. This one is the most important one, to make sure that you've got that one sealed up. So we'll do that, and I'll put the sealer on the thread before I stick it in there. So we're ready to get the water pump on here. So I've got my bolts out here, which once again are labeled to help me keep track of them over the years, and I've left the washers on, the ones that require the washers on them. So this is pretty straightforward. So to get started, I'm going to start putting the thread sealant on it. Get this ready, brand new tube. All right, let's see how this works. Looks like I got to knead it around a little bit. All right, let's try it again. It's pretty good. Just kind of smooth that out there. And as mentioned, I'm just going to stick on a very light coating of this oil, just on this thing. One drop. There we go. So this is ready to go in, and I'm going to do that right now. Okay, we're looking straight at the front of the engine. Water pump installation port there and over there as well. So I'm going to start with the bottom screw there and get that set up. So getting ready to install, I trimmed this one here that I mentioned, and we're going to get ready to put it in. So it's going to be sliding in here if I get enough room. There we go. All right, I'm just getting ready to line this water pump up. It's a little bit of a tight space up there on the left where the air conditioner bracket is, but once I got it in there, it lines up pretty well. So what I'm looking for here is to get that bottom bolt lightly threaded into the engine block. And after that, I'm pretty much stable and ready to put in the other bolts. Lightly tighten that just to get it started. It's good. Now I'm going to put in the top one over there. All right, working on this side here. This has the air conditioner bracket on it as well. So hopefully I can line all these guys up. All right, so we've got the top right in and the bottom left. Now I'm going to move to that side. So remember, this guy needs to come down and over a little. So in this segment, I'm just lining up the alternator bracket into that top hole of the water pump, and it's all going really smoothly, no issues whatsoever, thankfully. Lightly tighten this guy. And now onto the one below. All right, as you can see, this bolt, not a lot of thread on it and a long shaft on it. And that's because this is all casting here. So we're going to get that in. This guy should just slide right in. Should be the easiest, I hope. Yep, that's good. Lightly tighten this guy down. Move up here. And we'll come over to this side over here. All right, working down below here. So those are all reasonably tight, but not torqued. I'm going to get my torque wrench and torque them up. And it's only torqued at 30, right? There we go. Move on to this one. There we go. One down here. $30. And finally the one down here. There we go. That's at 30 as well. So looking into the engine bay here, you can see where this guy will eventually go on, like so, and then putting that in. So now we have our pulleys. They're going to be aligned and things look good. This needs to be tapped in a little bit more. So looking in the engine bay, got the water pump back on now, and this is on temporarily. Yeah, so the next thing that I have to do is put the brake line in here, which I've already got, and I'll be doing that shortly. But there you have it. You've got the new water pump on there with the fancy gold bolts in there. They're all torqued to 30. So hopefully this will help you out. That's the way that I do it. I try and be as cautious as possible. What I don't want is to have leaks afterwards. So there we go. Hey everyone, that concludes the video on installing the water pump on the 350 small block Chevy engine that is in the C3 Corvette. There are no major issues with that, and I'm so glad that it installed without it being an extra headache that I don't need. So anyway, all went well. That's it for this video. Hopefully you find it useful, if not entertaining, and we'll catch you all back here next time.